Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to the Beginner's Guide to Mistweaver. I'm not going to mince my words here. This is one of the harder healing classes in the game, but I think the difficulty curve is quite friendly. We're going to go over all of it. I'm going to set you up for success, and I promise you, I think this guide will give you the starting skills to move your way all the way up through 20s. There are also plenty of other good Mistweaver content creators out there. Megaset is another big name, and she has a lot of technical videos and also incredible guides as well. So if you want to do some cross-reference work, I highly recommend checking out her as well. This is a Mythic Plus focused guide, so I'm going to be talking basically only about Mythic Plus. There are some really fun raiding builds as well, but I'm not going to be the person to go over raiding because I mostly do Mythic Plus. Now, disclaimer number one, it's challenging, but it's not challenging because there's like a lot of buttons or there's this like whole crazy ramp sequence like Discipline Priest. No. Your rotation on this class is actually quite simple. It's the positioning, it's the momentum. I like to describe Mistweaver as a very inertia-based class where when you get the heels rolling and you set yourself up, you can carry that momentum for absurdly long times, and it's a really great feeling. However, if anything stops and crashes your run, you end up blowing a lot of mana to make up for it, but that's okay. That's sort of the balance of Mistweaver, if you will, if you allow me to sound like a monk for a second. And I think with a bit of practice, this spec is very doable. The hardest part is actually positioning, and some of that is on your tank. If your tank's pulling really sloppy and not being good about organizing a pull, it can get really hard to play Mistweaver. We also have a lot of control, which is a godsend in higher level keys to have so much crowd control in your kit, but it can be overwhelming when you're new. So I'm going to start with the basics, going over the talent page that I will provide to you in the video description here. Go through all of it, and then we'll start talking about some things that you can change and some things that you can play around with in the talent section later. Now, my final disclaimer is that this is not Mistweaving, this is Fist Weaving. Fist Weaving is the Mythic Plus standard, because it is simply better than the ranged Mistweaving build. I really wish Blizzard would add some ranged Mistweaver support, because I think it'd be really cool to see some of that come back from the Mists of Pandaria time, but that being said, ranged Mistweaving is less damage, less healing, and less mana efficient. I cannot recommend it, and if you're looking to do that, this isn't the video for you. So give it a shot. Fist Weaving can be a bit tough, but I'm going to make it as easy as I can for you right now. Okay, so we're going to start with the basic damage rotation because that's going to turn into our healing rotation very quickly. And before I get into it, AoE damage, you press spinning crane kick. I'm not kidding. This is also an amazing healing button. More on that later. We're sort of living for the moments we get to just press spinning crane kick on Mistweaver and be the coolest player in the room. However, the single target buttons, these three right here, are going to be the ones we're focused on the most because this is going to provide us quite a lot of healing. So the basics. Tiger Palm is our builder. Blackout Kick, this button right here, will spend what we build with Tiger Palm. You'll notice I'm getting an icon here. This is a weak aura tracking my teachings of the monastery. And I have 3, which is max. Blackout Kick hits 3 extra times. Very cool stuff. Now, this move right here, Rising Sun Kick, is our big hitter. Does a lot of damage. Blackout Kick is a chance to reset it. So try to keep Rising Sun Kick on cooldown, build up your stacks, and then spend them. It is that simple, by the way. There are some complexities, and I'm about to get to them, but that's actually it. And the complexity is Feline Stomp. So this move, Essence Font, and Feline Stomp will both start what's called our Ancient Teachings of the Monastery, which is our healing cooldown I have with this weak aura right here. Now, as this ticks, 150% of the damage that I do from these 3 buttons gets put out into my teammates, my party members specifically, or in raid, your raid mates, evenly. 5 targets, healing split evenly among them. This means if you're healing 1 target, all 150% of the damage done as healing goes right into them and no one else. So if you're healing 2 people or 3 people, it feels pretty good. Healing 1 person, you'll heal them very quickly. If you're healing the 4 or 5 player territory, it's going to take a little bit to heal them all to full. And it's still very useful to do that. It just doesn't look very impactful. And we have ways to deal with all of that. But when you press Feline, a few things happen. First of all, you have a high chance of resetting Feline when on top of it. Resetting Phaline is important because if the tank moves or goes somewhere, you can reposition very quickly. It activates Ancient Teachings, and it stacks our Tiger Palm twice. Our Tiger Palm hits 2 times, meaning our rotation is keep Rising Sun Kick on cooldown, press Tiger Palm once, hit Blackout Kick. And it's that easy. And it's super free, and we really love it for that. You can stack it up all the way sometimes if, say, you're trying to save on mana, because these 2 buttons cost no mana and Rising Sun Kick doesn't cost a whole lot. However, in most circumstances, it's best to just Tiger Palm once and then hit Blackout Kick. Let's say use something like Thunder Focus Tea, which I'll go over later, but when you use it with certain moves, it has different actions. With Rising Sun Kick, it'll reset the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick, or rather reduce it by 9 seconds. So you can do what I just did, which is I did 2 Rising Sun Kicks in a row. Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick. This is a great combination, but you don't want to hit Blackout Kick when you are about to get a Rising Sun Kick. So it's better to just wait a second, press Rising Sun Kick, and then hit Blackout Kick. If you mess up this order though, it's not the end of the world. All of the damage you're doing, especially from Blackout Kick and Rising Sun Kick, is a ton of healing. Now, if you're in this training area in Valdrakken, you might notice that you don't do a lot of healing with Ancient Teachings, and it doesn't even show up on your healing breakdown. And that's because it only seems to work on party or instance members. So if you want to test how good your fist weaving is, my favorite thing to do is to go over to Algathar Academy on Heroic or Mythic 0. I prefer Mythic 0. And try to survive some of the Lasher packs to the best of your abilities. It's a really fun challenge, and if you want to learn how to fist weave very efficiently, it's a really fun and easy challenge to put yourself to, with very little risk being that it's just you in there. If Ancient Teachings is down, or excuse me, if Phaline is down, your Spinning Crane Kick will heal people. It only heals a few players at a time, but it's doing that constantly, so you might notice that I'm doing quite a bit of healing over there on those training dummies. And if you look at my meters, you'll notice I'm doing 50k damage per second with 90k healing. And these numbers are actually a little bit inaccurate just due to when I started combat. You can hit like 70-80k damage done and even more healing per second. I'll have a clip of my 24 Vortex Pinnacle I just timed. The star pull before the final boss, you can get some ridiculous healing and damage numbers and a pull like this, especially if you have like an augmentation in your party. So it's very fun. You're kind of living for the moment where you can press Phaline Stomp and do all your healing. Now, Spinning Crane Kick is more damage at 3 targets, but it's not necessarily more healing than your single target rotation. If you're only healing maybe 1 to 2 targets, stick to the rotation of single target buttons. If you want to do damage and you're not worried about healing them up, then feel free at 3 targets to go to Spinning Crane Kick. But around this 5 and up target count, you're actually going to do such a ridiculous amount of healing with Spinning Crane Kick that it's actually sometimes better than your single target healing. So you'll learn when it's better to do one or the other, but if your tank's doing something huge and you know that you're going to be able to sit in the middle of that and Spinning Crane Kick safely, drop your Phaline and start spinning. It's amazing healing. But if, say, a single target is getting fixated like an Underrot, you might actually want to swap to your single target buttons to heal just that player up pretty quickly. And that's it. That's the basic rotation. The only other thing I didn't cover was Essence Font. This will put a little heal on everyone, and it's nice to press one moving. It's not bad healing. It's a lot of mana though, so it's a bit costly, but let's say you don't want to move your Phaline because it's in a good spot and you're worried about your tank maybe running off to another pull soon. Use Essence Font to refresh your Ancient Teachings without having to move your Phaline. Cool little trick. Also, you get a buff standing in your Phaline. So my Phaline's active for 30 seconds. It's cooling down for 20, which is nice because it means you have a chance to move it before you lose the actual Phaline. But when you stand in Phaline, you get a buff. Your buff's 4 standing in a Phaline. When you walk off them, you have them for about 8 seconds. So if you're in a bad spot, you can sometimes dip into your Phaline in order to get your buff back. Phaline is also random, so it'll make a pretty little shape, and sometimes it makes these little circular flowers, and all of this counts as not Ancient Teachings, as Phaline area. If you walk out, you'll start getting a countdown. So just make sure you walk over your Phalines. But even a spot like the one I'm in right now still counts as in the Phaline, which clearly I'm not. But this can also pull mobs, so just be careful. And sometimes you get these really sad ones. And I don't know what to do when I get a sad one like this, but you manage, you work with it. So let's talk about the healing buttons on Mistweaver, as I think if we're going to talk about what makes this class complicated, it's probably your actual healing buttons. So to start, our mastery, Gusts of Mist. Now, our mastery scales out of control, by the way, so if you get a little bit of mastery in your, like a ring, you'll notice your mastery percentage goes up real quickly. That's normal. Gusts of Mist, when we cast a bunch of our moves, it'll produce a Gust of Mist. So let's say I heal myself. The bigger number is Vivify. The smaller number was the Gusts of Mist. So a lot of our moves do this, like our Renewing Mist heal over time. That's the Gusts of Mist. And then this smaller number is the actual heal over time working, although now it's over here. I'll talk about that in a second. Also, please ignore that the sky went green. This is PTR, I don't know, 10.1.7. I'm sure we'll all know what that is in a little bit. I haven't gotten spoiled yet. Okay, to start, Vivify. Vivify is our basic heal. It's quite costly in the mana department, and every 10 seconds it can be instant cast too, which is really nice. It's not the best heal to be spamming, and there is a good reason to spam it that we'll get to in a moment here, but make sure you have it close. It's your flash heal, it's your primary button, so to say. Renewing Mist is a heal over time. When it's on a healthy target, it'll actually jump to a target who needs it. This actually makes reapplying Renewing Mist kind of easy. You can just let it move around the map for you. Also, Rising Sun Kick will send out a Renewing Mist on the target and refresh the duration of other Renewing Mists that are out. This is, of course, with the way we're talented, but this means by doing your single target rotation, you can get a lot of these out. And Vivify will do a partial cast through everyone who has a Renewing Mist on them. So you can heal tons of people very quickly like this. And I highly recommend you utilize that whenever possible. Enveloping Mist is our other big button. Note that it costs 12,000 mana and it's a heal over time. It's not a crazy good heal over time by any means. It's only a couple seconds long for about 70k, 80k, but it increases the target's healing received by you by 40%. So if I cast an enveloping on me and then a Vivify, look at that chunky 60,000 and 22,000 Gust of Mist. Yes, that also applies to Ancient Teachings. So if there's a particular person that is hurt in your party, you can hit them with an enveloping mist and then heal that player in particular a little bit faster with your Ancient Teachings. It's a very useful technique. Now, we can finally talk about Soothing Mist. This is a channeled heal you can use on anyone, including yourself. It's mana positive, so if you're ever slow healing while waiting for some RP or something, this is great. But you can channel a few moves through it. Expel Harm, which we'll get to in a second. Zen Pulse, which we'll get to in a second. Vivify and Enveloping Mist. One of your best healing combos is to hit a target. I'll hit myself. Soothing, Enveloping, Vivify, Vivify, Vivify. And you can see the numbers there. That's a lot of healing. It is your primary way of healing your tank, of healing someone who's getting murdered. If you have to heal someone up fast, it's the way to go. There's also another fast healing combo we'll get into in a second, but that is a go-to. So even if you were sad you weren't going to be doing a lot of mist weaving in this build, you do actually. That is a very potent way of healing people. Does it drain your mana bar? Yes. Is it good? Yes, it's actually really, really good. Expel Harm is a small heal on ourselves. You can also use it through Soothing Mist. We don't gotta talk about it. It's not that impressive of a heal. This is great on Brewmaster, and it's a combo tool on Windwalker. It generates a chi and it refreshes your combo, but for us, it's not a big deal, so try not to worry too much about this button. Next on our healing list is Thunder Focus T. This will amplify one of our buttons. For Rising Sun Kick, you already know it reduces the cooldown by 9 seconds. For Vivify, no mana cost. Renewing Mist, it lasts 10 seconds longer. Enveloping Mist has an instant cast and an instant heal of around 40,000 at my current gear score. Essence Font will also channel a little bit faster, which is a little more useful in Raid, and not something you'll be doing in M+ very often. But when you press this button, it'll also activate your tier set, which will be allowing you to cast a pretty heavy heal, which is nice to hear. But also, you hit this to set yourself up, and then it won't go on cooldown until you use it, which is nice. And then you can use it to, say, set up a double Rising Sun Kick. This is also one of your big save combos. You can hit Thunder Focus T, instant Enveloping Mist someone for a nice big heal, and then 40% additional healing received, and then pop your instant cast of Vivify, and That's a lot of healing on someone very quickly. So it's a good combo to save someone's life if they're in dire need. Healing Elixir is a cooldown we take that just lets us heal ourselves up for up to 30% of our maximum health, 15% per charge. Sometimes I use this twice in rapid succession, and the reason I do this is to just heal myself back to full so I can ancient teachings other people, or to keep myself alive if I'm dying. But let's say you have 5 targets to heal. Well, if you could full heal in 2 of these, or enveloping mist 2 healing elixirs, then you're only healing 4 targets with ancient teachings, which means the 150% of your damage done is healing is now hitting 4 targets instead of 5, which is more healing for those players. So use healing elixir to kind of top yourself off and make your ancient teaching life a little bit easier, or just use it to survive. Zen Pulse can be triggered through Soothing Mists, and it's sort of, it's an AoE around us. Boop, there it is. It does a lot of damage, and it does a lot of healing because all the damage it does also heals. Great for saving a tank's life with a super low cooldown. Try not to forget to press this button, and you'll notice in players like Mega Sets build, Echoing Reverberation can let you get a lot of damage and healing out of this, so that can be fun to play with later as well. Chi Burst. Okay, so I don't use this move for its healing, and I don't use this move for its damage. I use this move because it has an uncanny ability to reset my Feline Stomp, and I don't know how it works. I want to say it's rolling the dice through every target it hits, but my luck is so bad, it doesn't always work that way. Just, like, I hate that I have to do this to you, but just trust me. I swear to God, send Shadowlands something about Chi Burst resets Feline Stomp more often, so I just take Chi Burst. When I'm struggling to get a Feline Stomp reset, I'll run over to my Feline and then hit Chi Burst through as many teammates and enemies as I can possibly hit. And I usually get the reset. And sometimes you don't get the reset and you're crying in the club, but that's okay. That's normal for us here, and will happen to us every once in a while. We already went over Essence Font, so let's talk about our first external, our only external, Life Cocoon. This can be cast on you and cast on other targets. I take a cooldown that reduces its overall cooldown from 2 minutes to 1.3 minutes because this is one of the biggest absorbs in the game. An almost 400k health shield at my current item level, which is 446 by the way. It's gargantuan. All healing over time effects are increased by 50%, and it applies renewing mist and enveloping mist with the way we're talented. Just put this on a target and they float around real stupid, and I love that animation, or rather lack of animation. And it's just a huge defensive. Use this on your tanks, use this on your friends getting hit with too many spells. It's such a lifesaver. I really like Life Cocoon. Keep it handy. It's one of your best friends. Sometimes I even just use this to like lazy heal someone who got hurt because I don't have time to heal them. So I'll just throw a Life Cocoon on them, knowing that my Fist Weaving will do the rest while I'm working on someone else's health bar. Revival is our big 3-minute mass dispel. It's 100% more healing when not in raid, and it is a mass dispel for magic, poison, and disease, which is what our Dispel Detox does, which, by the way, Detox, great button. So Revival is huge. Now, there is another version of this over here called Restoral. This is the PvP version, as it doesn't do magical effects, which can ruin you in PvP sometimes. And it can be used while stunned. So take this if you're experimenting in the PvP world. There'll be compositions you want to use, but if you're a Mythic Plus, you're grabbing Revival basically every single time. Shayloons is a very interesting button, and it's time we talked about it. So I'm going to get in combat with a mob, and you'll start noticing as I'm in combat with a mob, there'll be these gusts of mist that appear on the floor. There's like a little packet of mist that hits the floor, and that's Shayloons healing. Now, it stacks up and it doesn't care where these mists are actually. I think it's purely decorative, but for each stack, it does more healing. 16,000 per cloud absorbed. You're going to be hitting 124 to 300,000 on a crit with this move. It is crazy. And with the way we're talented, we generate mist more frequently, we hit more targets, and we cast it faster. And it is crazy. Ready? Oops, wait, let me get one more stack. Okay, there we go. No, not the cleave training dummy, this one. Huge, 350,000 on one of those targets. That was 1 million healing. Look at this. There's 1 million healing with one button. Hard to put into words just how good this move is. Use this in conjunction with your Celestial, more on that in a moment, to sort of keep that momentum that I'm talking about going. You're going to use Shayloons to cover a mechanic. Oh, here comes some big team-wide damage. Okay, it's the end of the damage. I'm going to hit Shayloons and put us back to full. Okay, you're good. And then the next time it happens, use your Celestial, and then you can go back to Shayloons. But what's nice about Shayloons is that it can be cast again pretty frequently because it just works on charges. So let's say you need to heal people up and it's only got 4 charges left. It's still going to be a really chunky heal. Like even at 3 stacks right now, ready? We saw some 50Ks in there and whatnot. That's still a pretty nice big heal for something that happens, charges up while you're in combat. Now you do have to be in combat, which means if something opens with a lot of damage, Shayloons is probably not the play, but the stacks don't fall off. So you will be able to hold on to those stacks as you go. Now, it's time for me to, before I get into defensives and utility, it's finally time to talk about our Celestials. So the Celestials is a big conversation. There's 2 of them, Yu'lon and Chi-Ji. We run a talent that makes them a 1-minute cooldown. They're both unbelievably strong. You'll see Yu'lon a little bit more in raid, but Chi-Ji still has some raid builds. Both are good at Mythic Plus and into the 20 level that I'm sort of promising with this video. You can run both just fine. Now, Megaset has a huge video on all the weird things and inner workings of Chi-Ji. So if you want to watch that, it's right on her channel. I think it's the first video right now. But the short version is that Chi-Ji is going to be more fist weaving focused, while Yu'lon is going to make you take a break from the fist weaving and focus on just pumping some heals. So I'll show it off. We put down a Fey line, summon Chi-Ji, and then I start doing my standard rotation. And you'll notice in the healing done department, right? Look at how much healing I'm getting out of Chi-Ji right now on those targets. Now, this is a bit of a bloated number because we are getting some passives and whatnot here, but that was 2 million healing in a 12-second window, and it was very, very fast. Also notice I get a free enveloping mist. Whenever you press, I think it's a blackout kick or so, on like a Fey line, like Tiger Palm to blackout kick will do it. Again, the rules of what produces an enveloping mist is something that Megaset will go over in much more detail. I mostly know it by feel, apologies. Enveloping mist will become free, no mana cost, instant cast, and it'll trigger Yu'lon, or not Yu'lon, Chi-Ji's breath. That breath, you can even just cast enveloping mist with a thunder tea or whatever, and it will do it. But Chi-Ji will breathe on everyone, increasing the healing received by 10%. You can get this on, I think 4 or 5 people at a time. You might need to get 2 moves out. It doesn't really matter. Chi-Ji is healing a ton, whether it be from the enveloping mist or from the gusts of mist from your fist weaving. And I mean, I'll have a clip here from Vortex Pinnacle. It's crazy. You'll see the health bars just kind of go up. You do a lot of healing with this move. I mean, a lot. So it's really good, but Chi-Ji is very haste centric. Scales off of mastery quite well and scales off of haste very well, because the more moves you can fit in, the more healing you're going to get. So let's say you don't have enough haste, or you're uncomfortable with relying on Chi-Ji's window and you're still getting used to it. Well, then head over to Yu'lon. Yu'lon isn't a bad pick. Both of them, when you pop them, will give a 100k so shield to your whole party, which is huge. But then Yu'lon will reduce the cost of certain moves. So you can mash Enveloping Mist, don't mind that. I use Thunder Focus Tea. So this is reduced mana cost. So just Soothing Mist and pump Enveloping Mist and Vivifies into everyone. And they're getting tons of healing from Yu'lon. They're getting tons of healing from your Enveloping Mist. And that was 4-point-something million by the time it finished from the Yu'lon window. It's massive. So this is your big CD. Use this to, again, keep that momentum up as you heal. Chi-Ji and Yu'lon are both great. Experiment with them. But if you want an easier time with your life, Yu'lon is a much more beginner-friendly Celestial. Chi-Ji is a little bit tougher, but once you get that haste and you really start getting the value out of Chi-Ji, you can do a lot more efficient healing and even just better healing at times. But there are situations where even in some of these 23s and 24s I'm doing, where I think I would rather have Yu'lon for certain situations. So keep an open mind and definitely learn both of these. But if you're scared, head over to Yu'lon and don't fear these, but make sure you keep them around, because at a 1-minute cooldown, they're up often. And also, final tip for Yu'lon and Chi-Ji, if you want to get some healing started immediately, summon them, hit Thunder Focus Tea, Enveloping Mist, and then go to your Soothing Mist or start your Fist Weaving. That'll kickstart the heals from the Enveloping Breath, which will increase their healing received by 10%, and then your Enveloping, and etc., etc. Okay, so onto utility and other buttons. So roll. we have rolls. You can get more charges of this. You can also change it to Chi Torpedo if you prefer, which is really, really fun. But yeah, we move quite a bit as Monk. We can keep up with a lot of situations and tanks and people running around. Let's say you're in a Neltharian's lair and Kragmod's about to hit Strike of the Mountain and you got a melee 5-stack. Kindly just roll out of there. Let your other melee friends have a little bit of room so you don't kill them. Use your movement effectively. Get used to this. It's very important you have roll nearby. Tiger's Lust. This is a great 30-second cooldown, 70% bonus speed for 6 seconds, or I guess increases your speed by 60%. And it removes roots and snares. This includes the barrel and freehold on the captain bosses. This includes anything that slows as well. So you know the magical dot that the dragons do in Halls of Infusion? Yep, you can hit Tiger's Lust to remove that off someone. You can also hit Freedom, by the way. You can also disengage. Anyway, really nice move. You can cast on other people, make your DK's life while they're trying to gather mobs. Now, before I get into defensives and CC, let's talk Mana Tea. Mana Tea is a button of ours that is brand new to 10.1.7. So if you're watching this on day of release, it might not be out yet. This is going to come in the next patch. And for those of you watching this on time, every time we spend a certain amount of mana, I want to make sure I read it correctly. After we spend a certain amount of mana, we get Mana Tea, 25,000 mana. And that's not a lot of mana, right? That's an essence font and some change. So every stack you get will restore 3,600 mana with the way we are talented, but every stack will also mean that many seconds of 50% less mana consumption. So let's say you're low on mana, drink your Mana Tea. Let's say a big mechanic's coming up and you got a bunch of stacks of Mana Tea, drink up, and then blast. Let out your buttons, let out your cooldowns, whatever. Use it to restore your mana and use it to give yourself a window of opportunity. It will channel while moving, but notice that you're quite slow while doing so. So just make sure you're doing it in a good spot. However, because Tiger Palm and Blackout Kick don't cost any mana, you'll notice that if you're fist weaving with these two buttons alone, you'll be regenerating mana in the first place, but you won't be actually getting any Mana Tea stacks. So Rising Sun Kicks will slowly but surely add to that. Also, if you spend 2,500 mana and you 25,000 mana, excuse me, and you roll a critical, you'll get 2 stacks instead of 1, which makes crit a nice stat to have a little bit around, you know, just kicking. I wouldn't over prioritize it for that reason, but it is quite nice. Raiders might be over prioritizing it, but again, I'm not the authority on that one. Okay, on to our defensives. We have 3. Dampen Harm is our go-to. It's a 2-minute cooldown and it reduces all damage we take from 20% to 50% for 10 seconds. Larger attacks get reduced by more. I don't really know what dictates the scaling on this. All I know is that Dampen Harm is a very strong defensive and you're going to want to use it. Fortify is also a good defensive. It's a 4-minute, but 20% more health, 20% damage reduced for 15 seconds. So it's not as much DR, but you get bonus health, which we all know scales quite well. So this is a great survival button, but I use this as my last resort. This Diffuse Magic is a 1.5-minute cooldown that reduces magic damage only by 60% for 6 seconds. It does have some spell reflect properties. More or less, it's a magic dispel. And if the magic dispel can be turned back on the target that sent it to you, it will. So talk to your Death Knight friends and your warrior friends for what might be spell reflectable or AMSable. And sometimes diffuse magic will work with those things, but it isn't AMS where you can apply it beforehand and then deny a magical effect. It is a true dispel. So it's weird. It's funny how it works, but otherwise just take this as an extra magic dispel for yourself. Now, fun fact, there's another talent, Yu'lon's Grace, which will remove the button, but give you a 3% of your max health absorb shield every 2 seconds, stacking up to 15%. I just ran this in that 25 Neltharis I'm showing footage of every now and again. It's good. It's good. It actually does a lot of work. It does a ton of work in PvP as well. If you want one less button to worry about, feel free to go Yu'lon's Grace. If you feel like the dispel itself would be more worthwhile, head over to Diffuse Magic. But if you're feeling lazy, don't feel bad about Yu'lon's Grace. I'm getting a ton of value out of it. We have slightly lower health bars as Monk than other classes, but we also have things like reduce all damage taken by 3% and Generous Pour, which is up to 4% reduced damage from area of effect attacks. Yeah, that's wild. So there's nothing wrong with having this like passive shield. It just kind of adds to how thick we are given our health bar. In the control department, we have a melee kick, 15-second cooldown, right? And you can use this during spinning crane kick, which is really nice. Paralysis is a 30-second cooldown, not by default, but we have a talent for it. It incapacitates the target for 1 minute. This is great for skips. This is great for telling one mob you don't want it to join you with this pull. But you can also just use this as a stop. So if there's a mob that's casting and they're crowd controllable, you can just tap paralysis and you'll interrupt whatever spell cast it is. It won't kick it, but it will stop it. Another stop is Ring of Peace. This is an AoE with a 45-second cooldown. Any mob that can be CC'd will be knocked back if they enter this area. You can do some really funny CC chains with this. You can set up some really goofy skips called para-rop, where you paralysis and then you rop something and then it just moves out of the way and your team can walk by. There's a lot of fun to be had here. Ring of Peace is great. Keep it nearby. There's also Song of Chi-Ji on the same node, but this is a PvP talent as far as I'm concerned. You're not going to be using this in Mythic Plus, especially with a 1.4 second cast time. You're not going to be able to react to a mob nearly as quickly. Leg sweep, 1 minute. Knockdown stun for 3 seconds. What's not to love? This is super powerful. You're going to be using this often, especially in high keys. Now, finally, I'll talk about Touch of Death. 1.5 minute cooldown. You kill the target. That's it. When you have more health than them, you kill them. So you're going to murder bosses with this. If you take improved Touch of Death to go down to the avoidance talent, you can use it before the mob dies. This is nice if you have a brewmaster in your party who will always beat you to the punch on Touch of Death. So you also need to take this in PvP if you want to use it in PvP, I believe. But that being said, Fatal Touch reduces the cooldown of Touch of Death. Just kill things. Ta-da! Fun little execute. And it's free. So why wouldn't you? The only other move to talk about here is Crackling Jade Lightning, and we're not really going to talk about it. It's sort of a meme, doesn't do a lot of damage. It will knock back things, by the way, if you're desperate for one more CC, I guess. Only works in melee range, of course, if you want to knock things back. But yeah, it's the Crackling Jade Lightning. Use this to pull mobs from far away. If they ever, for some reason, bring explosive back, use this to blow up explosives. You don't have to worry about this spell. It's a great meme though. I mean, it's Sith Lightning. Like, if you want a meme, you should. In the stat weight department, I'm running a pretty conservative build here. I'm also on PTR, so I'm not actually running the right chromatic essence. I normally run all stat. But these are some good stat weights. You can go even higher. 36, 37% haste is not too much. That's a lot. Haste is kind of everything for us. More attacks, more mana, more healing. Haste is good. Verse and crit are really nice to have. I have mine currently at around 2,000 critical with about 3,500 something. Oh, excuse me, with about 5,000 something haste and 3,500 something verse. You don't want your verse too low because it helps keep you alive as well as helps your damage output. I also found that I was lacking on verse for a while, and it was a substantial increase in my heal. That's going to be a raid bots like simulation craft angle for trying to figure out what you need more of. Don't worry about your mastery. If you have high mastery, it just means you're going to have some really fat, potent gusts of mist. This can go down really, really low. Lower is sometimes even better. But I've been running a slightly higher mastery just to make spot healing a touch easier. And you can't go wrong with that, honestly. Don't overspend on mastery in Mythic Plus as you're getting geared, right? If you're in the 100% territory, you might want to talk about it. If you're going over 100%, I think that's the too much category. But in raid, you end up running a lot of mastery. So if you want to keep some raid gear around, feel free. For Toshiaries, by the way, I really recommend you get Avoidance. We don't survive very much as Monk, so I highly recommend more Avoidance. Means less damage taken from AoEs. This does compound with things like your Generous Pour if you end up running this later, so helping us stay just a little bit thicker. On the gear side of things, Neltharion's Call to Dominance right now is really strong, but if you're watching this like in season 3 or something, I'm not going to know what the trinkets are. I'm recording this in season 2. But in season 2, Neltharion's Call to Dominance is really powerful. You get your hands on this. Giga. Your Celestials are just massive. Because you can get up to 10 stacks for 10,000 intellect. Yeah, the damage is crazy. The healing's crazy. What's not to love? Also really like Chromatic. but feel free. Rashok's Heart is good. You can run Rain Song. You could run Iridius Fragment if you want like a healing button, so to say. Ward of the Faceless Ire is one of my favorite trinkets in the whole game because it's just like having another life cocoon. So lots of trinkets to play with there. Try not to overthink it. Try not to worry about it. But if you can, Neltharion's Cult Dominance is quite powerful. So get your hands on that. Can't go wrong in the trinket department, so to say. Pick what you need that's best for you as a player. And overthinking your trinkets is a recipe for disaster. All right, and the talent tree side of things, we get a lot of damage talents and whatnot because, again, it applies to our healing. We get roll charges. In this beginner build, though, I'm running a lot of the reducing, not reducing. I'm trying to get your Fort Brew up more often with reducing its cooldown by 2 minutes. I think more defensives is good when you're learning, more ways to keep yourself alive. Also, one of the reasons we do so much healing is because of Close to Heart and Save Them All. Players within 10 yards of you receive 8% increased healing from all sources. So if your whole team is dying, instruct them to move in and they'll get more healing from you. This is also great for your tank and anyone else in melee, as they'll basically always be getting this. Save Them All. When your healing heals somebody with 35% below their maximum health, is below 35% maximum health, you gain an additional 20% healing for the next 4 seconds. This will refresh up to 4 seconds. It doesn't go higher. But wow, the save window, right? Let's say you pop Chi-Ji and someone dips into that dangerous territory, you're going to heal through the roof. The amount of healing you're going to produce will blow your mind. So Save Them All, excellent talent, really recommend it. If you want a little more damage, you can remove a few things from here. Maybe you're getting rid of improved paralysis and going another route. But Summon Away Tiger Statue is a lot of damage. Not necessarily worth it in Mythic Plus when I think this build is quite good. And then the one that goes to Generous Pour is also quite good. You don't need it, but this is fun. I know some of you really like Summon Jade Serpent Statue. Stop. Please don't. It's not great. I wish this was better. It's okay in raid. It has some use cases, trust me, but it ain't this one. There is some funny synergy where you can go Calming Coalescence over here to make your shield bigger and use Summon Jade Serpent Statue in your downtime to power up your shields. That's a silly way to play, and you can, but I don't recommend it. The statues as cool as these two are. I really wish Summon Black Ox Statue was more useful. I don't end up taking them very often, but if you are in like a low key and you want to blast, yeah, bring out the White Tiger Statue. You'll enjoy yourself. On this side of the tree, we grab healing elixirs again to help with healing. It's good in high level keys, good in low level keys, right? Makes your fist weaving a little bit easier. We take this uplifted spirits to make revival cool down a little bit quicker, but also just heal a bit more. I think that's really useful when you're learning. All of this is pretty standard. Some people are going to be running echoing reverberations. There's a lot of stuff here to play with though, and feel free to play around and try out different things. Maybe you don't mind spending 5 hours drinking your mana tea, and Life Cycles is actually not a bad talent if you track it correctly. One very fun talent, if you're looking to have a blast, is Xiaohao's Lessons. So your Shayloons will go at a normal pace, or half the speed of the pace you saw earlier, but read through those 4 buffs sometime. They're all busted good. All of them are fantastic, and you'll get very long durations of them, up to 30 seconds, depending on how high stacked your Shayloons is. I don't do this in higher level keys because having having Shayloons stack faster is more useful for me. I just might need more healing throughput, and I prefer to have that safety blanket. But don't sleep on Xiaohao's. It's amazing, and I think it's a really fun time. And again, with Celestials, Yu'lon's easier, Chi-Ji's a bit tougher, more haste and mastery focused, but it's worth learning both. Chi-Ji is better in most scenarios, but Yu'lon pumps, and the up to 20 land, don't feel bad about taking Yu'lon. Over here, by the way, is where Ancient Teachings is. This is where our fist weaving is located. The tile next to it, Clouded Focus, is really big in raid. There's a 1-minute raiding build that uses this. That's awesome. But if you run this, you will simply not be able to get anything out of Ancient Teachings. So run Ancient Teachings. Enough said. But if you do want to try that raid build, by the way, it's quite fun. I really liked it. Final notes while we're wrapping up the guide. First of all, it is hard. focus on positioning, always stand behind the mobs, try not to stand on top of the tank. There are very few scenarios where you should stand on top of the tank just because of things like frontals. Frontals are going to kill you a few times. You might get killed by things like Vicious Claw Mangle a few times, moves that'll fixate and attack people in melee. You're going to have to get used to it. But I think Mistweaver's worth the learning curve. The momentum side of it is hard. Getting out renewing mists and whatnot, some players will over prioritize that. And you'll just learn with time, as you start your fist weaving flow and you get out a couple of hots, you'll end up just suddenly having so much momentum behind your heals, so much like speed almost, that you'll just be able to heal people in a flash and get control of bad situations very quickly. That being said, it's challenging. Give yourself some time, learn in low keys. And that Algathar practice I talked about is incredible at helping players get better, because you really can survive in Heroic and M0, healing quite a lot of that dungeon, especially the Lasher area, with just fist weaving. And so it'll really give you a sense of flow. And again, you can just die and die again all you want in there, and you'll learn a whole lot. On the meta side of things, it's not meta. Mistweaver has been underplayed forever, but it's been really good for a long time. I've played it since Shadowlands Season 1. I'll be the first to tell you, it's good. And it's been good for a long time, but it is hard. A lot of players will tell you that like, oh, it's not good, but no, it's just underplayed. And I don't want you to be discouraged for that. You can heal 20s just fine in this class. I'm healing 24s and 25s just fine on this class. Don't note the 20 deaths. We made some mistakes. I don't think those were necessarily healer related. We were having some hard times in there, but I'm healing 24s on Tyrannical, like Vortex Pinnacle, just fine. And I think you can too. So the up to 20 range, I think, is very doable for this spec. And it's going to give you an appreciation for all the different elements of World of Warcraft. You're going to be getting that melee, that DPS angle, the positioning angle, the healing angle. And because you're going to be so close to the tank, you're likely going to be able to observe a lot of what they do very easily. Now, you might have to yell at people to run into your range every once in a while, but I think that's honestly worth it, especially given the amount of throughput that you get on this spec. And if you have any problems with this spec, you can always bug me, right? If I'm on stream and I'm not like in the middle of a tournament key or something, I'm always down to talk Mistweaver. I'll give you pointers. I have no problem with that. It's truly, it's no pressure on me. I love it. I love talking about this class. It's some of the most fun I've ever had in a video game is playing Mistweaver. So I hope you enjoy it too. But that's going to do it for this video. I'll try to get all my relevant links down below. But for the most part, if I missed anything, let me know in the comment section and I'll update it. But I hope you enjoy Mistweaver. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.